Greetings, my name is Reid and I am the inventor of the crystal cell, a quantum vacuum energy extraction device that makes use of the theory that I have developed, the theory of asymmetric electric systems and quantum vacuum energy extraction. The theory explains how to produce electric energy pollution-free from non-toxic materials that are indigenous to the whole planet, that can be found everywhere. I'm here to talk to you about my new book that explains how a new class of electrical systems work. These are energetically open systems, open to the energy within the quantum vacuum. The crystal cell is my first working example of this kind of an open electric system that extracts energy from the quantum vacuum to provide emission and fuel-free power abundantly. The book explains how these new systems work and how they can be recreated. We will be solving the problem of energy by understanding what in fact energy is and how to cleanly make use of the abundant energy all around us, just as all living systems do, just as all of creation does. This theory explains the mechanism through which energy arises from space-time itself, why we observe a conservation of energy and a gain of energy in this new class of open systems based on experimental evidence from the giants of the physics world. With this theoretical framework I have assembled from the work of my teachers, we can precisely describe that moment when information becomes self-aware. Or as the Buddha described it, the process of dependent origination, but described in quantum mechanical terms, with experiments that each can independently repeat to verify for themselves. As this is the fundamental system involved in every interaction, an understanding of it is necessary to correctly describe any system from any branch of the tree of knowledge. This is the seed of life, and that is the logo for my research laboratory for vacuum energy. It explains the principle of how something comes from nothing. The book is entitled Virtual Photons in Electromagnetism, and it outlines my theory of asymmetric electric systems and quantum vacuum energy extraction. This theory allowed me to develop these quantum open systems that behave like energetically open systems. Around this theory, I was able to build the crystal cell, an electrical energy generating device that needs no fuel but instead harvests energy from the limitless supply all around us, from where all of the energy in the known universe arises. We are here to generate pre-sales of this revolutionary book so that we can afford to complete the production of the first edition print of the book. We need to pay the illustrators from the legendary wooden books, the typeface from Oxford University Press, and pay for the first print run of 3,000 editions. We are only able to see what we now can because we stand on the shoulders of giants. Einstein, Hawkins, Steven Weinberg, Richard Feynman, T.D. Lee, Ilya Prigogine, Brian Josephson and Lisa Randall, nearly all are Nobel Prize winners. There is nothing new that we are describing in our theory. We are simply taking the most advanced theory that has been developed to describe electromagnetic interactions, namely the quantum electrodynamics theory, and we are applying this theory to common electric systems. This allows us to create a new class of electromagnetic systems, so-called quantum open systems. The systems that the mainstream electrical engineers and physicists are using to describe conventional electrical systems and even build power stations are those equations developed by James Clerk Maxwell in 1864. The conclusions and assumptions of the Maxwellian theory assume a material ether and that electromagnetic fields have an instantaneous effect between 2 points. This view is practical for an electrical engineer to work with, but we now know this is not what is actually going on. My book describes the now famous experiments which allow one to see for oneself that these assumptions are untrue, however convenient they may be for calculation. When we take quantum electrodynamics theory that has been experimentally proven to be one of the most accurate theories we now have, and we apply this theory to common electric systems, then we are able to do things that were not possible before. It's very simple, really. Quantum theory allows us to describe in much greater detail what is going on because it includes the energy within spacetime in the equations. Going from there, we can describe, model and predict the non-self-symmetrizing resonance phenomena that draw excess energy from the quantum vacuum like Professor Turtur and Professor Hawkins have shown us. Now I'm going to read to you a few excerpts and quotes from my book. Physicist Professor Lisa Randall from the Harvard University. The exchanged photon, which has carried and caused the classic electromagnetic force, is in reality a virtual photon. Where Professor Randall explains that the virtual photon transmits the electromagnetic interaction, I explain the role of the virtual photon here. Remarkably, virtual particles possess a special form of energy. This energy has a quality which exists only in a virtual form. Virtual means that this energy does not really, in an observable sense, exist unless a virtual particle is created directly at or within a real particle, for example, an electron. In this case, the virtual energy, as I call it, is transferred from the virtual particle to the electron. The electron can then be accelerated and thereby the virtual energy converts into an observable form of energy, which is measured in joule. In the book, we use illustrations from the talented wooden books illustrator Matt Tweed to explain these concepts in more simple terms. Here we can use an everyday example to illustrate how the virtual energy within spacetime becomes an observable form of energy. When a scuba diver is 20 meters underwater, he has several tons of water pressure on his body. But this force is invisible to him because it is evenly or symmetrically distributed around his body. So if he wants to make the water pressure visible, he needs a pressure gauge. The pressure gauge contains an air bubble which has a normal air pressure which we find at sea level. The unbalanced or asymmetrically distributed water pressure within and outside of the pressure gauge will turn the needle. The difference between the pressures, or pressure asymmetry, makes the invisible energy or virtual energy into observable energy. So if we want to make the energy within spacetime visible, we need to create an energetic pressure difference of two unlimited energy densities which exist in spacetime. As you can see, we need the funds to be able to afford to pay Matt to finish the illustrations for the book. A quote from Professor Stephen Hawkins. As we have seen, the uncertainty principle of the quantum theory shows that fields even within empty spacetime are exposed to permanent ongoing quantum fluctuations and possess an unlimited energy density. So we have to subtract an unlimited value to receive a limited energy density. This is what we see in our universe. The quantum fluctuations that Professor Hawkins has mentioned in his quote are the causative agent that create the sustaining oscillations within the crystal cell, generating a steady flow of electric current. In the book, we go into exact detail how this exactly works. Another quote from Dr. Brian O'Leary, former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor, says, "These concepts have been proven in hundreds of laboratories all over the world, yet never see the light of the day. If the new energy technologies were set free worldwide, the change would be profound. It would affect everybody. It would be applicable everywhere. These technologies are absolutely the most important thing that have happened in the history of the world." And the last quote again from Professor Stephen Hawkins. "It is said that there is no such thing as a free lunch, but the universe is the ultimate free lunch." Quantum electrodynamics theory allows us to describe a new class of energetic systems that extract energy from the quantum vacuum in a clean and unlimited way. We don't just have a theory, we have a working device that was built around our theory that draws energy from the quantum vacuum as the theory describes it. I will now introduce the crystal cell to you in more detail through the endorsements and conclusions given by the doctors and professors who have performed their own independent tests on it. I quote from their sign endorsements that you can download from the Research Laboratory for Vacuum Energy website. For example, Dr. Hans Weber, a nuclear physicist from Switzerland who attained his PhD from Cambridge, says the following: "The crystal cell developed by Marcus Reid in Munich is a fundamentally new way of electricity generation with the potential to replace not only chemical batteries and solar cells, but after scale-up even fossil and nuclear-fueled power plants as well as hydropower stations." The crystal cell was also tested by the Doctor of Chemical Physics, Dieter Krzyzewski, who analyzed the crystal cell in his laboratory. He concluded, "The crystal cell's energy must be created by a kind of internal photoelectric effect, activated by penetrating latent radiation or virtual photons, maybe in form of scalar waves." So this is another PhD whose independent tests support both my theory and the experiment, and prove that the energy must be coming from an unknown source. Eckhard Kanz, an electrical engineer from Germany, has an esteemed career, for example designing the software that runs nuclear power stations, which he would then operate for that power station. He has done extensive research on the crystal cell. For example, the calorimetric measurements were done with great efforts. He has overlaid hundreds of automatically repeated measurements to receive a statistical calorimetric result that was done in the millikelvin range. His conclusions are: in the studies conducted over 4 years, the crystal cell presented itself as a reliable energy converter which is in a position to produce electrical energy constantly. To summarize, the crystal cell represents an energy converter with enormous potential for the future, which will trigger a revolutionary effect on the entire energy sector after its broad practical introduction for covering different energy segments. Professor Karl Ernst Lotz, a chemist from Germany, who was a professor of construction chemistry in the field of silicates, has helped us as an advisor to understand the various measurement data on the crystal cell. He has said, after giving the project closer attention and having had personal contact with Mr. Reid, together with some other scientists, I have come to the awareness and creed that the development of the crystal cell is a relevant system for our future. the continuation and further development of the crystal cell is highly recommended. Another physicist, Dr. Frank Lichtenberg, has done his PhD in physics at the IBM Research Laboratory in Zurich, and thereafter he worked at the research center of the Varta Battery AG in the field of rechargeable nickel metal hydride batteries. Dr. Lichtenberg's comment after conducting material analysis by X-ray diffraction was, "In my opinion, the release of electrical energy from the crystal cell represents an interesting and potentially new phenomenon. Therefore, I recommend an extension of the research and development work." After coming to these conclusions about the crystal cell and to put our new way of thinking into experiment, Dr. Lichtenberg helped me to design the research and laboratory plan so that we can continue to develop the experimental prototypes. The laboratory plan and research proposal is contained within the executive summary available on our website. This book will help us to bring more investment and research grant monies to this research facility, and we will also be offering an equity-based crowdfunding opportunity so that the world can take ownership of this technology, but more on that later after I tell you what you are getting involved in. Prominent professors at top universities have also created experimental evidence for quantum vacuum energy extraction. Professor of Physics and Electrotechnics Klaus Turtur at the University of Applied Sciences in Wolfenbüttel, Germany, has precisely described the method of extraction of energy from the quantum vacuum and has an experimental prototype that demonstrates how this can be done at low power levels. Jerry Pollack, professor for bioengineering at the University of Washington, has discovered a similar phenomenon in his experiments exploring the fourth phase of water, a self-structuring mechanism that can be used to create water batteries, which is also in the book. They are extremely interested in our work and have ordered crystal cells for testing at their laboratory in Washington. With my theory that is in the book, I also explain the physical mechanism behind these so-called morphogenetic fields. The world-famous biologist Professor Rupert Sheldrake, father of the theory of these morphogenetic fields, remarked on my theory that it explained it much more clearly than any other account that he had read. Professor Sheldrake's book, The Science Delusion, explores the dogmas of scientific materialism that assume certain truths where we have a wealth of evidence to demonstrate that these assumptions are not true. Again, we present this experimental evidence in the book. We have tried applying to literally hundreds of universities, companies and laboratories for research funding and have failed because this model clashes with the mainstream model. Unfortunately, people are afraid to lose their positions within the established structures built around the standard model. Their jobs depend on that standard model being true, and they have families to feed. The established structures are busy providing the services that they do, and we have no problem with that. That is their business. Our group is starting a new business. Professor Pollack, Professor Sheldrake, and their peers from around the world have committed to the creation of a $10 billion fund, the Institute for Venture Sciences. This fund is designed to assess serious scientific research into the theories that are rejected from the established scientific dogmas and have done due diligence to show that they could be of massive benefit to nature and humanity. We need to take universal responsibility and personal responsibility to understand nature and how to work with her to provide what we need in a totally clean and harmonious way. This book is a very calculated step on that path in the company of some of the best qualified minds on the planet. Buying this book not only supports our work and spreads awareness of the phenomenon our lab and many other labs are observing, that we also have included in the book, it supports the continued development of the Research Laboratory for Vacuum Energy. We are planning to start a laboratory at Goodwood in the south of England. This laboratory at Goodwood is being nurtured into being by the Foundation for Common Good. Together with the Foundation, we have created a cooperative which has rights for manufacture and distribution of the crystal cell. The name of the cooperative is the Sustainable Media Cooperative. By buying this book, you are also supporting the Sustainable Media Cooperative. One of the licenses was given to the Sustainable Media Cooperative to manufacture the crystal cells under a license developed by Nobel Prize-winning mathematician Professor John Nash, who won his Nobel Prize for showing that competition is not environmentally or economically sustainable in the long term. Membership to this cooperative is open, so that when you buy this book or the crystal cell itself, you can gain an entry-level membership whereby you can start to upload your test data onto your federated wiki so others can interact with your data live. You will also be able to apply for higher levels of membership into the cooperative if you are ably qualified to perform the tasks that need to be fulfilled, scaling up production of the crystal cells. Full members will be able to vote and direct the good energy that we are accumulating here according to principles of harmlessness to that which is most expedient to the service of all life. This book is a must-read for all technically interested people because the book describes how the most dominant force that we know of works. It is of absolute and fundamental importance because the electromagnetic force is the most dominant force. An understanding of what electromagnetism is the basis for understanding all chemical, physical, mechanical and mental phenomena. Please order your copy of the first edition today. With the pre-sales of the book, we will be able to afford to go ahead with the production of all different aspects of the book much faster than we can presently afford to. We are also selling the crystal cell experimental prototype so you can have your own quantum vacuum energy extraction device or just a cheap electronic copy of the book. Please look at the Kickstarter website for the financing opportunities. Thank you.